Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Josh and today I want to talk about something that I did recently, which was sell all of my Sony equipment and buy a Fuji. So ever since I've done photo and video professionally, I've been using the Sony APS-C lineup of cameras. I started off with the A5000, then got the A6000, then the A6300, and then the A6400, and that was all a span over sort of 3 to 4 years. However, recently I decided to sell off all of my remaining Sony gear and buy into the Fuji system. So just a quick rundown of what I had when I sold it all. I had the Sigma trio of lenses for the E-mount, which is the 16mm 1.4, the 30mm 1.4 and the 56mm 1.4. I had a Samyang 12mm f2. So yeah, I had a pretty good lineup. I was really happy with all the lenses I had, but there was just something about the Sony system that I just wasn't clicking with. I wasn't excited to use it. So what exactly was missing from my Sony cameras? Well, first of all, the ergonomics. I actually was really happy with the ergonomics for the most part, but it was only until I got the Panasonic S5, and then once I got a different camera from a different system, I actually realised just how bad the ergonomics were. Also, Sony cameras, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys agree with me on this, but they just don't have any character at all. They're very corporate and they're very sort of clean cut. And of course, that's great for corporate work and, you know, it's great for actual work like what I do, but I just wasn't excited to use it anymore. Everyone that has a Fuji has always raved about the color science and the JPEG quality and all that sort of stuff, as well as the ergonomics and usability. Like, from what I know, they're pretty much the most hyped camera in terms of how fun they are to use. So for me, that really interested me, and that was a massive reason why I actually ended up putting the trigger and getting one. For me, the Fuji system was offering everything that the Sony couldn't, and that was an enjoyable experience using them and a lot of character. The JPEG quality for Fuji, like the film simulations they have in body and stuff, something that I really love to do is to go out with my friends and take photos, and when they're not serious photos, it's sometimes an absolute ball ache to go through and edit them all, especially when you're shooting raw. So I wanted to have something where I could actually have usable JPEGs and just send them off to my friends and family, as opposed to have to edit the photos every single time like I would with the Sony, because the JPEGs out of the Sony cameras for me just weren't good enough. In a matter of around 48 hours, I'd managed to sell off all of the Sony gear that I had left currently, and then with the money that I got from all that equipment, I bought the Fuji XT3 and the Fujinon 16-55 f2.8. And then I also got the small rig L bracket with wooden grip handle attachment for this camera. Now personally, I think that the grip on these Fuji bodies are extremely shallow and really uncomfortable to use, so this grip was an absolute necessity for me when I was buying into this system. I'll leave a link in the description for this grip because it's definitely worth picking up if you are using one of the Fuji XT bodies. So my initial thoughts after selling off all my Sony stuff and getting a Fuji camera. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like it to start off with. One of the things I actually hated when I got a Fuji camera was the menu system. I don't know what you're thinking, wow, that's rich coming from someone that's been using Sony for the last 3 years. I mean, of course, everyone knows that Sony has probably the worst menu system in history of making cameras, but I was used to it and I knew exactly where everything was. It wasn't as user-friendly as I had anticipated it being. When I got the Panasonic for the first time and then used their menu, it just made so much sense right off the bat. Whereas I feel like the Fuji menus are almost like the Sony menus in the sense that they don't really make sense unless you use them a lot. So that was something I didn't like. I wasn't actually blown away with the film simulations either when I first got this camera. And I found that it wasn't as pleasing straight out of camera as I was expecting it to be. Like, I feel like you really need to be careful as to what film simulation you use and in what situation you use it in, because quite a lot of them actually render skin tones quite poorly in my opinion. However, when I went out and actually started using the Fuji more extensively, that's when I realised why everyone raves about their Fuji camera. It was actually extremely fun to use and the film simulations look fantastic when you use them in the right lighting scenarios and with the correct white balance. There's also something you can do where you can essentially modify the film simulations in camera to make your own recipes, and I went onto the Fuji X Weekly site and found an Ektachrome simulation which I actually really like, using the Velvia film simulation in camera and tweaking a few options on the inside. I'll leave a link to that recipe in the description for you guys if you're interested in checking it out. All the Fuji fanboys always rave about the top dials on their cameras, and don't get me wrong, aesthetically they look absolutely fantastic and they do give a really retro look to the camera. However, I found in terms of actually using them, they're really clunky and annoying and actually get in the way quite a lot. So what I've done is I've actually disabled the top dial so that they're actually not usable, and I actually use the front and back dial to control my shutter speed and ISO. And then the aperture is of course on the lens itself. For me this works the best and it's the quickest way just because it's what I'm used to with the Sony cameras and the Panasonic camera I have. Do I have any regrets in buying into the Fuji system and moving from Sony? Honestly, no. I was really bored with the Sony cameras at this point, so it made sense for me to sell them on and then try something different. So in terms of that, there's no regrets at all. The one thing I do miss is having my set of prime lenses, the Sigma Trio. They're just absolutely fantastic lenses, extremely sharp. But in terms of the actual camera and the actual system itself, I don't really miss it, to be honest. I think once I start to kit up my X-mount lineup of lenses, that's when I'll start to really fill that gap. To wrap it up, after I've been out and used the camera a little bit, I started to understand exactly why Fuji is so popular. So in terms of that, I'm definitely happy that I did buy into this fun enthusiast sort of style camera, because it genuinely is really fun to use when you're out using it. The film simulations are absolutely fantastic when you know how to use them properly, when you know what film simulations to use, and when it actually does make a really good difference to the JPEG quality. Of course, white balance for me was absolutely paramount. You need to get that correct in order to have good and accurate skin tones when you're planning on not editing the photos at all, so that's something to bear in mind, but I do think it's a really nice feature to have inside the camera itself. Overall, I am actually extremely happy with the decision I made to sell the Sony stuff and get the Fuji camera, and hopefully once I add some more lenses to the arsenal, it will be a match made in heaven. So thank you again for watching this video. If you haven't already, then please subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I shall see you in the next one. Thank you.